Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at enhanced dry fire training at home with laser training cartridges. This is the first in a 4-part series on dry fire training at home. My opinion is that if you're going to carry a firearm, you need to be experienced and proficient with it. That requires regular practice, and the best firing practice is with live ammo, but we all know that that just isn't easy or affordable for everyone. Personally, I've carried for decades, but never felt I could get enough range time practice. There's an alternative strategy that can provide a fairly good supplemental activity for range time with live ammo training: dry fire training. And today, there are a variety of approaches that are available to dry fire training. Beginning with the easiest and least expensive level, and concluding with a highly sophisticated range simulator, I'll review my own experiences with 4 videos as I've transitioned through dry fire solutions to maintain my shooting skills without going to a range. Over the years, my approach to dry fire exercises has evolved. As the cost of live ammo range activity has increased, and especially during a time when the availability of ammunition has become a real challenge, dry fire exercises have been increasingly found to be a good alternative. But just aiming at a target and pulling the trigger on an empty gun can be a bit boring after a while. Finding ways to increase the benefits for the best training experience has resulted in solutions that sometimes work better than others. This first review takes a look at the easiest and least expensive solution beyond the simple dry firing of an empty gun or a gun with snap caps or dummy rounds. The first solution: dry firing with laser training cartridges. First, let me just say that all the firearms used in this film have been carefully checked and cleared. And by the way, if you like this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Well, let's begin with the question of whether it's even safe to dry fire your gun. Beyond making sure the gun is completely cleared and safe, will dry firing, that is, pulling the trigger on an empty gun, damage the gun? I did a whole video on this topic last year. You can see it by clicking on the link above. Now basically, centerfire guns are usually okay to dry fire, and rimfire guns, 22s, are not. But this is not a 100% accurate rule, as I demonstrated in that video. Popular brands like Beretta, Glock, and SIG warn against excessive dry firing of their centerfire pistols, whereas Browning says it's okay to dry fire their newer Buckmark 22 pistols, and Ruger says there's no problem with dry firing its classic 10-22 rifle. My recommendation is that you check your gun's manual or contact its manufacturer. However, I also strongly suggest using snap caps or dummy rounds rather than pulling the trigger on an empty chamber, regardless of whatever firearm you have. There are 3 reasons. First, it's better for the gun mechanically. Second, it will require that you go through gun handling steps, that is, checking, loading, unloading, etc. And third, it's less likely that you'll mistakenly pull the trigger on a live round in a gun that you thought was empty. My first and most economical approach to improving my dry firing exercises was to add an inexpensive laser training cartridge to dry firing. These laser cartridges are available in different calibers. There's even one for a .177 and 22 long rifle. You can even get a laser training shell for your shotgun. Basically, there's a rubber button on the cartridge that lights up a laser when to press. So when the firing pin hits the cartridge, you get a laser burst to show where your shot would have hit if it were real ammo. So for under $50, I bought a red laser training cartridge from Amazon that allowed me to use my own firearm. But now I could see my shot as a red laser dot when I pulled the trigger. It works exactly like the snap cap, except now I'd be able to see where I would have hit if I'd actually fired a real round. The cartridge came with extra batteries and O-rings, as well as an additional rear activation striker cap. The cartridge loads directly into the firearm. And now I can aim at anything, and when I pull the trigger, the red laser dot flashes to tell me if my aim was accurate. My first laser training cartridge was the 380 ACP cartridge from Amazon for about 33 bucks. I chose the ArcSight 380 ACP cartridge basically because it had reasonably good customer reviews and was priced at only about $35. There were several companies making these laser cartridges, and I'm not sure if one's any better than the other when looking at basic red dot training cartridges. And I could have chosen a 9mm cartridge at the same price, but 380 ammo was difficult to find and expensive, and my everyday carries at the time were either a Walther PPK 380 or a Kimber Micro 380. So dry fire training with these pistols was a priority for obvious reasons. At the time, a box of 380 ACP target and range ammo had cost me about 80 cents a round. So this laser training cartridge cost about the same as a box of live ammo. I thought that was worth it. As for cons, the main downside to the laser cartridge solution is that I find I'm looking for the dot rather than focusing on keeping the front sight on target. Of course, I also have to either manually rack the slide or cock the hammer before each shot, since there's no recoil. I should mention that pointing and pulling the trigger on one of my guns in the house, even with just a laser cartridge, makes me a little uncomfortable. It makes my wife even more than just a little uncomfortable, so I tend to limit my practice to confined areas. Also, the first laser cartridge I received was so badly aligned, 12 inches off center at 25 feet, that I had to return it to Amazon for a replacement. I should also mention that if your gun is a single action like my Glock or Kimber, you'll find you need to charge the slide each time to fire, or at least as on the Kimber, pull the hammer back to fire. That becomes a real nuisance after a while. Now if your gun is a single double action like the Walther PPK here or SIG P232, no problem. You can pull that hammer back by just pulling the trigger each time. Although it's a long pull every time, at least you don't have to cock the gun to fire. As for pros, the main upside is that I'm getting feedback, and the cartridge can be used in any of my 380 guns, and it was cheap. The only other things I needed was some gun grease to lubricate the O-rings on the cartridge, and a pencil to push the cartridge out from the barrel with the eraser end to remove the cartridge when finished. I can aim at light switches or other items throughout my house all day with no expense. I liked it well enough that I also bought a 9mm cartridge for my HKP-30. I'd even picked up a 12-gauge trainer cartridge for my home defense shotgun. By the way, if you find this video useful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now, as I said earlier, the cost of the basic red laser training cartridge can run from about $30 to $50, and they come in sizes from 380 ACP through that of the 12-gauge shotgun shell. Even a 22 long rifle unit is available. There are also infrared lasers that emit an invisible dot. An infrared laser would seem to defeat the purpose of seeing your shot placement, but these are cartridges that can be used specifically with a number of interactive targeting systems, which is the subject of my second of the 4 videos on dry firing training at home. Be sure to check it out. Frankly, this first solution, the laser training cartridge, may actually be the best bang for the buck in improving your dry firing training experience. It's a cheap yet rewarding advance from plain dry firing on an empty gun. It's worked for me for many years, and it's provided a rewarding minimal level of feedback I was looking for. In the next review on improving your dry fire training experience, we'll look at an interactive target system that uses your smartphone to provide excellent performance feedback, and we'll also look at a 3-target reactive training system that I consider a major step up from dry firing cartridges alone. Be sure to click on the link above to review this second video on dry fire training at home with a laser ammo interactive multi-target training system, or IMTTS. Until then, remember, any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. Until next time, stay safe.